am a commercial fisherman. We go through motors constantly. I bought a brand new Suzuki 250 and I only got 2 years before the motor blew up. I find a discussion about hours very interesting. I've had some motors go to 8,000 hours and the Suzuki only went to 3,000, but we use these motors 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. What is your opinion about commercial fishing and outboards because they only give us 1 year of warranty? Hey there, sorry to take you away from the video, but real quick, did you know that on average a boat owner will spend between $1,000 and $5,000 a year just on servicing their engine? And you could actually pocket and save a lot of that money if you would just do the service yourself. It might seem like a daunting task, but I guarantee you virtually everyone can do it with our guidance and the Boaters program. This is just one skill that you could learn inside the program because we have hundreds of other videos teaching you all kinds of boating skills, as well as a weekly live stream where we have questions and answers with me, as well as a chat feature where you can send videos and pictures, ask all kinds of questions, or look for some advice or some guidance on a project that you're doing on your boat. You can join the program by hitting the first link in the description, clicking join, or visiting bornagainboating.com. Now back to the video. Commercial is completely different. Like you said, you guys are putting on so much time on the engines. Just doing the math at that, you're talking 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. That is 48 hours a week. So you're putting on 192 hours per month. And then, per year, you're putting on 2,300 hours a year, give or take. Obviously, that could be some more, that could be some less. It could be 1,900 hours one year and 2,600 hours another year. So yeah, when you're putting that amount of time on them, if you were to break it down for the cost of maintenance, so what everything that I'm talking about now is going to be for a commercial fisherman, someone that is putting this amount of time on an outboard. This is not for you that is only putting on a couple hundred hours on your engine per year. The information is going to be totally different, but I think you'll understand as I talk through this situation. So at 2,300 hours per year, on an engine, yeah, if you only got 3,000 out of the one engine, that's 2 years and the thing blew up. That's not good. But at 2,300, if you divide that by 100, that's 23 oil changes in that year. Now, on top of the oil changes at 23 that had to be done, you're also going to have 7 300-hour oil changes, which is basically 3 impellers, spark plugs, anodes, all of that stuff. So because of just working the numbers, let's say it costs you $600 to do the oil change, and then let's say $1,500 to do the 300-hour service. Obviously, if you're paying someone to do it, 7 of those 300 hours, that's cost you $11,000, and then plus the other 600 oil changes or $600 oil changes, 100-hour services, so $9,600. So we're talking $20,000 to $22,000 just in service costs for one engine. Let's say it's a 300 because that's, I'm just a Suzuki 250. The numbers are going to be very similar if you're running the recommended 100-hour oil change and 300-hour impeller change. The reason I brought all that up is that if you are a commercial fisherman and let's say you are making, let's say you make 100 grand just to make the math easy. At 100 grand a year, you take out all of your fuel expenses and all your maintenance costs. That maintenance cost at 22 grand, that brings you down to making $78,000. Then you got to pay Uncle Sam, pay your taxes. Let's say you pay 8 grand on that. That takes you down to 70 grand. And then you put in your fuel costs and all the other stuff, towing the boat there and everything else that goes into it. You're spending a lot of money. So obviously, in order to make it more worth continuing to be a commercial fisherman, and running charters and such, you're going to want to save as much as you can. And obviously spending $22,000 a year on oil changes ain't cutting it. So what I would say for you, my thoughts on something like this, and what we see a lot of charter captains do, a lot of commercial fishermen, a lot of people that run this amount of time on their boats, you will be selective in what you do, and you will find your own maintenance routine to extend as much time as you can, because there's some things that you can push down the road and some things that you cannot push down the road. So I've seen people that do 200 plus hours before they do an oil change, which is not good. I mean, that's why you only get 3,000 hours out of the engine, is the thing pops because of dirty, old, low oil. I mean, that's mechanical failure. The engine's going to blow up. But other things you can push down the road. I mean, anodes, fuel filters, spark plugs, accessory belts that drive your alternator, impellers. Some of that stuff you can kick the can down the road. It doesn't have to be every 300 hours and every 100 hours. So your oil changes, your gear lube, and the oil filters, yeah, I would not be skipping on that. I'd be doing those every 100 hours. But the other stuff you can kind of kick down the road, because if you're dropping your lower unit and doing the impeller 7 times a year, if you only drop that lower unit and did the impeller, let's say twice a year, and got that much more time out of the impeller, obviously the impeller wears out, and you'll be able to see your pressures on your engine. Most of them have block water pressure sensors on them now, so you'll be able to see what your water pressure is and to know when your impeller is starting to go out. Before you break a blade, you're generally not going to break a blade off of an impeller just because you're running it so much that it's not like the thing's getting hot. It's just losing its rubber moldability and the amount of pressure that the thing can make. So I would be trying to stretch the impellers, and then also the accessory drive belts, your anodes. There's no reason, unless you have corrosion issues, to have to change your anodes 7 times a year. Unless you're in a really bad spot and you've got other issues that are eating those anodes out. Those anodes, for the most part, you're going to be able to stretch those out and be, let's say you get 400, 500, 600 hours out of the anodes before you have to change them. Stretching that stuff out. Thermostats, those are going to be hit or miss, whether or not you're going to be able to stretch. Normally you do 300 hours on a thermostat, but again, you're putting 300 hours on in 6 weeks. So in 6 weeks, you're putting on 300 hours. So is that enough time and enough water and enough air to corrode and destroy your thermostat in 6 weeks? Maybe, maybe not. If you get 8 weeks, 10 weeks out of the thermostat before it starts to give you problems, and again, you can see the temperatures on your gauge, you can see your water pressures on the gauge. So you can probably stretch your thermostats out as well as spark plugs. Generally, you can't stretch spark plugs too long. 300 hours is pretty good. You can get 400, 450, maybe 500. As soon as you get to that's 500, it's kind of really stretching it. You don't want to stretch the spark plugs too long because that can cause other issues. But that's what I'm thinking as far as like just a discussion on, for one, making the engine last longer, and for two, not having to spend that much money trying to get the engine to continue to last a long time, when the amount of time that you're putting on these engines that quick, or on these components, same thing as your fuel filters, your water separators. As long as you don't have water in your fuel, if you take that water separator, it's just filtering your fuel. As long as you're running good, clean fuel, you're not, running trash through your engine, you're going to be able to stretch that water separator and your fuel filters out a little while. They do break down over time, but again, it's just a paper element that's in there. If you are putting, if you're not changing those but every 3 months, that's going to be how many 100-hour changes? That's, 300, 400, 500 hours on your fuel filter. Obviously, if you have dirty fuel and getting crap fuel, that's another issue. You're going to need to change them sooner than that. But if you can do them every other oil change, that's going to save you a lot of money. And again, you're putting time on like that. It's not like it's going a year or so. So anything else that I could think of that would be able to stretch it out? The oil and the gear lube, that's a non-discussion though. Like there's no getting around that. I would do the engine oil and the oil filter and the gear lube every 100 hours, because if you burn oil, which does happen over time, especially when you're running that much, you don't want to run low on oil, and then the oil gets dirty. So after 100 hours, 150, 200 hours, I know it's just another week, but another week is kind of like it's rough on all the oil changes. But you don't want that. The dirty oil is going to wear out mechanically the engine. It's not good. So I would not be skipping on those. Whether you do it at 100 on the dot or 120, 130, because again, we're talking about from 100 to 120, 130, that's only 2-3 days. So you kind of have to work that in your schedule. It's the staying away from the 200, 250 before you change that oil. That's what I would be mainly concerned about. What else you're asking about? Other than that, the oil changes are going to make them last longer. And the gear lube, there's no warning on a lower unit. When a seal goes bad on a lower unit, it goes bad. Like, it's not like, there's any kind of buzzer. You just start losing gear lube, you start sucking in water, and the next thing you know, the lower unit blows up. So I'd be doing the gear lube every 100 hours, but if you stretch an impeller to 400, 500, 600 hours, you don't have to drop the lower unit. And if you're doing I would also do all the maintenance yourself. Keep logs and do it all yourself. So that way, if you trailer the boat, you can do it, you'll get very, very proficient at doing this. So I would definitely be doing your own maintenance and not paying someone, because those oil changes go from $600 paying someone to do it to only $100, $150 in oil and a filter. But you let me know what you do as far as trying to run that whole gamut of trying to save money over here, but trying to still get the engine, protect the engine, but also stay in business. It's not like, you can just shut down the boat every other week to do service on it and not be out running the boat. You're running a business. So kind of a catch-22. Now, if you like this video, you can watch the full episode over here, or you can watch another clip over here.